All right, hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are taking a deep dive into some verses from Galatians 6.
Specifically from Galatians 6.
Yeah, and these were chosen, with you in mind.
With our listeners.
Yeah, so whether or not you've read this chapter before, we're going to try to pull out some practical guidance from it.
Absolutely.
Things that you can use in your daily life.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that here.
Right.
It's still really good advice.
Yeah, so what really jumped out at me right away is how much Galatians 6 is about the intention behind our actions.
Well, for sure.
It's not like just a list of rules to follow.
It's not like a checklist.
Right, but it's about the motivations and, what's driving us to do what we do.
Absolutely.
So like right away, verses 1 and 2 paint this picture of, someone who's messed up, made a mistake. And it doesn't say to, judge them or anything like that, but to restore them.
And to do it gently.
Yeah, with gentleness and humility.
Yeah, it's not about putting yourself above.
No, it's like, look, we've all been there.
Right.
Right, we've all needed a helping hand.
Exactly. And recognizing that shared human experience, I think, is so key to what Galatians is talking about.
Yeah.
That we are all fallible.
And that we all fall short.
Yes.
And when we really kind of grasp that, I think it becomes a lot easier to offer grace and compassion to others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then it builds on that in verse 2, talking about bearing each other's burdens, saying, bear you one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ, which, on the surface, it sounds like, okay, we should support each other.
Yeah.
But what does it actually mean to fulfill the law of Christ?
Yeah. So you're right to point that out, because I think a lot of people hear the law of Christ and they think,
rules.
yeah, rules are very specific things to do or not do.
Like the 10 Commandments or something.
Yeah, like the 10 Commandments, exactly. But I think here what Paul's getting at is that the law of Christ is much more about love and compassion than about the letter of the law, right?
Right.
It's about embodying those things that Jesus lived out, actually caring for others and not just being focused on what you as an individual can achieve.
Oh, that's a good point.
But seeing yourself as part of a community.
And being responsible for the well-being of that community.
Exactly.
But then, a few verses later, it seems to contradict that a little. Because in verses 3 through 5, it says, let every man prove his own work. Like, examine what you're doing.
Right.
And that each person should carry their own load. So how do we reconcile those two things?
It's a really good question, and a lot of people struggle with this, but I think it's not so much a contradiction as a call for balance.
Okay.
Yes, we should help others, but we also can't carry their burdens for them.
So more like be there to support them. But ultimately, they are responsible for their own choices.
Exactly. So it's about encouraging individual growth at the same time that you're extending a helping hand.
Right.
And also being honest with yourself, right? Recognizing your own limitations.
Right.
Because you can't help everyone with everything all the time.
And you can't fix everyone's problems.
Yeah, you can't fix everyone's problems.
Yeah, and I like how it brings up this idea of examining our own work.
Absolutely.
Because it's easy to get caught up in judging others, but it's important to look inward as well.
For sure.
All right, so now this next part is what really grabbed my attention. Verses 6 through 9 about sowing and reaping.
Oh, yes. This is a powerful concept.
I mean, it's a pretty simple idea on the surface, your actions have consequences.
Right.
But it goes deeper than that.
It does.
It's like we're constantly planting seeds, whether we realize it or not, and those seeds are going to grow into something.
Right, and that's true in so many areas of life.
Yeah, it's not just about, like, literal farming.
No, it's about personal growth. And it's about relationships.
And it's about, like, our impact on the world.
And it's a principle that transcends any specific belief system.
Right.
I mean, it's basic cause and effect.
Right. You put out negativity, you're going to get negativity back.
And vice versa. You
Right.
put out kindness and generosity, and you will see that reflected back to you.
And then verse 9 says, not be weary in well-doing.
No.
For in due season we shall reap if we faint not.
That's such an encouraging verse.
It is. It's like, hey, keep going.
It's like, don't give up.
Yeah, even when you don't see the results right away.
Yeah, because sometimes it takes time.
Right.
You might not see the fruits of your labor immediately.
But if you're persistent.
If you keep putting in the effort.
Especially if you're trying to do good.
Especially if you're trying to do good.
Yeah.
Then eventually you will see the results.
You will reap what you sow.
You will.
So, moving on to verse 10,
Yeah.
It seems pretty straightforward. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. Like, be kind, be generous.
Right.
But then there's that phrase, the household of faith. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so remember, Paul is writing to a specific community here.
Right, the early Christians in Galatia.
Exactly. So the household of faith refers to that community.
Okay.
But I think it also has a broader application. While we should try to be kind to everyone, there's also a special responsibility that I have to those who are closest to us.
Our family and friends.
Yes, and those who share our values.
Okay, so it's about prioritizing those relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, starting in verse 11, the tone changes a bit.
It does.
Like, it gets more personal.
More direct.
Yeah, and a little heated as Paul starts addressing some specific issues within the Galatian community.
Right.
And one of the big things he brings up is this whole debate about circumcision, which, seems kind of random to us, maybe.
Yeah.
But it was a huge deal back then.
It was a big deal.
So why do you think Paul brings it up here?
Well, I think it highlights a really important point that he's trying to make.
Which is?
Which is that true transformation isn't about outward rituals or conforming to societal expectations. It's about what's going on inside.
So it's about an internal change of heart.
Yes.
Rather than just doing the right things outwardly.
Exactly.
Okay, and then in verse 17, he makes this really powerful statement. From henceforth, let no man trouble me, for I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Jesus. What do you make of that?
I mean, wow, what a declaration.
Yeah, for real.
It really reveals how deeply Paul believes in what he's saying, And he's talking about the literal marks on his body.
From being persecuted.
Yeah, from being persecuted for his faith. But I think it also speaks to the fact that sometimes standing up for what you believe in comes at a cost.
Yeah, it's not always easy.
No, it's not always easy.
But it's important.
But it's important to be true to yourself.
To your convictions.
To your convictions.
So, wow, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We talked about compassion and responsibility and the power of our action.
From self-awareness.
Yes. Examining our own work.
And perseverance.
Right. Not giving up on doing good.
Exactly.
And really focusing on internal change,
Yes. Genuine transformation.
Yeah. So much wisdom packed into these verses.
A lot to think about.
So the question we'll leave you with today is, how can you apply these principles from Galatians 6 to your own life?
How can they inform your interactions with others?
And your personal growth.
And the way you move through the world.
Regardless of your personal beliefs.
Right. There's something here for everyone.
That's something for you to reflect on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking wisdom in unexpected places.
See you next time.